Recently, we had a poll about gunships on our channel, and the A2 and the Redeemer were two of the more popular ones. They also happen to be the two that I recommend to most players, based on a few metrics, mostly how much you're willing to spend. So I think it'd be, hey, you know what, let's do a video about it, let's discuss it, let's find out what they're like, and discuss maybe the philosophy behind them, and all that. Let's see which one, how they stack up, and which one might be better for you. So without wasting any time, let's jump into it. So we're not going to go over too much on this page. We're going to only focus on what's important because a lot of this information is reflective of what the default loadouts are. So we're going to ignore those and focus on what doesn't change based on what type of parts you have on the ship. So HP-wise, they're pretty similar. There's nothing too stand out here. The only real significant difference that you can see right off the bat is the body, but the body on the A2 is pretty big, so you can understand that. So it's going to get hit a lot more. That's not a big deal. It's not really worth talking about. The only thing here that is really worth mentioning are the total parts. For those who don't know, total parts means what's on the ship that can break. And that means they have HP. So little doodads like tail fins, wings, engines, guns, whatever it may be. If it's got HP and can break, it counts as a part. So if you ever flown a Redeemer and you've lost your tail fins, now you know why. Because you have, well, low HP on your tail, as you can see there. And you got a lot more moving parts that can break. We're going to take a quick look at the summary chart here. And you can sort of see it. The A2, for the most part, has the Redeemer beat in most categories, with the exception of the retro thrusters, and that's about it. The A2 is a bit stealthier, and it's considered to be stealthier due to the fact that it's a much smaller signature based on the size. So obviously your CS is giving you away with the A2. So it's kind of got that going for it. But everything else, the A2 is just overall a better ship. So we're going to talk about the guns. People like the guns on the Redeemer. I like the guns on the Redeemer. I like the guns on the Redeemer because I can control my remote turret. Alright, maybe people don't know this, but you can slave that if you don't have a pilot in there and use it. So what I like to do is take the pilot guns, which are size 4 mounts, install a gimbal, then downsize the guns to Panthers, which match the forward mounted Panthers on the nose turret, remote nose turret. And I slave them together, and I use them. So this lets me use that slot. Which then means I only need 2 extra gunners to control the big ones. So you can control the Redeemer with 3 guys effectively. The tail gun, it doesn't matter. You don't need it. It's pretty bad. But it's there if you wanted to, to bring another gunner. And if you didn't want to do any real gunning yourself, you could always fill that remote turret with another gunner. So you could bring 4 gunners total, plus you. So that's about a crew of 5. It's not that bad. Going over to the missiles, this is another advantage Redeemer has over the A2 or missiles. There's nothing to write home about. I grabbed the 16 size 2 Dominators. EM, you should too. Shields, power plants, all that stuff's the same. Everything else, not worth mentioning, but it's pretty good firepower. Alright, so we go to the A2. We already noticed something massively different here. Lots of guns. Pilot firepower is complete crap. I'm not going to lie to you. But that's not why you're flying this. You are flying the A2 for its insane amount of gunners that it has and the amount of firepower that it can put down. So you're using that maneuverability that you have to give your gunners better shots. So I don't really bother with the pilot guns too much. I keep the default size 5 laser cannons on there just to have something to plink at people, and that's what I keep on there. It's just, it adds to, the firepower against a bigger ship if you need it. And the gimbals, they don't work too good on this thing, I find, for the pilot, so I keep them by default. For the size 4s, we have the pilot, they have the co-pilot controlling these, and the gunner in the rear of the cockpit. These are more for your light fighters. It allows you to kind of plink away at light fighters. So if your opponents were going to be light fighters, you would have those 2 seats filled for a crew of 3, pilot plus 2 gunners in a cockpit. But I'm not bringing this for light fighters. I'd bring something else for that. I'm bringing this when I have a lot of people, and I just want to lay down to hurt. And my friend, there is no better ship for laying down to hurt on other ships than a fully crewed A2. You have 4 size 5 cannons. While not very effective against light fighters, they will decimate anything larger than a light fighter, okay, if they hit. And they will hit against bigger ships. You've got 2 twin-linked size 5s. The Redeemer has 2 twin-linked size 5s. But you have an additional 2 size 5s as well. That's a lot of size 5 cannons. And of course you got the bombs, but again, I think the bombs are something that people get focused on too much. they're not that important. We were talking about a gunship here that is going to fight and kill other ships. Alright, so we've covered performance and the guns. Let's talk about the size of these ships. And this is definitely something very noticeable here. As you can see, you could pretty much fit, lengthwise, you could fit a Redeemer inside of an A2 if it was possible, lengthwise. The Redeemer is not a big ship when compared to the A2. So this is why it's baffling that the A2 has so much more maneuverability than a Redeemer. It's a bigger ship. You look at the side view, same thing. Profile's not that big. So the Redeemer's got the size going for it in terms of it's smaller and a little bit harder to hit. But the A2 is got way more firepower going for it. So keep these two things in mind when you're deciding between these ships. 'Cause there's a big difference here. Countermeasures are not something that people really spend a lot of time talking about, and they are extremely important because the counter to a large ship is going to be a torpedo. It's the only way to reliably kill them, and these ships have to deal with them. The A2 wins in this case. The A2 has 135 capital class decoys times 2 and 105 capital class noises times 2. No other ship in this game currently has that many countermeasures. This makes the A2 virtually impossible to kill with torpedoes. It just can't be done. It simply cannot be done because you will flare them off every time, and you have enough flares to be redundant about how many you spam. We're going to go ahead and fire off all these flares, and let's see how long it takes to empty the A2's massive amount of flares. The Redeemer, while having capital class flares, only has 25. This means that you've got to be pretty selective with them and hope that the server actually allows them to work. So the bright side is your capital class, the downside is that you only have 25. Let's go ahead and see how long it takes to dump all these flares. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's discuss the philosophy of use behind these ships, and we're going to start with the A2. The A2 is, in my opinion, the ideal gunship. It fulfills all the roles that I would want for a gunship to fulfill. Let's say, for example, that you have, inside of your ship, you have a Spartan, which is currently the largest APC in the game. This Spartan is loaded with soldiers. You have a mission on the ground. You can fly to the area, you can drop a bomb, or 2 or 3, or even 4, onto the area, kill whatever's down there, drop off the guys in their own APC, and then with the crew on the ship, fly around and provide some form of support, whether it's chasing off other ships, killing ground targets, or just in any way supporting them. This is the role that I would want for a gunship to fulfill. My philosophy on the Redeemer is, it's sort of a dropship. You do have 4 jump seats in the back, and it can kind of do the same thing. Obviously, you can't drop bombs, but you can drop off 4 soldiers and then kind of loiter the area and provide some type of support to those guys on the ground. But you don't have the utility to bring vehicles or carry cargo or anything like that. So your mission is a lot more specialized, and, you know, sometimes you just don't need a ship as big as the A2, depending on what you're doing. Pretty good at going after big ships. It's going to annihilate anything that is a Constellation or smaller, you know. It's going to definitely bully bigger ships like Caterpillars. It's certainly good for those types of ships, but just avoid an A2. I would not pick a fight with an A2 that was crewed if I was in a Redeemer that was also crewed. So in summary, I personally prefer the A2, but both ships are good. I think they both have their strengths and their weaknesses. In a straight-up one-on-one fight in a vacuum with a full crew versus a full crew, the A2 is going to win. There's no two ways about it. The A2 also, for me, has more utility that I'm looking for. I can carry some cargo, I can carry a vehicle, I can drop some bombs. I can leave any fight I don't want to be in. I'm immune to torpedoes. The A2 does that for me, and I really enjoy it. If I've got a full crew, I'm going to bring out the A2, and we're going to slay. And there ain't much that's going to stop us. The Redeemer, on the other hand, is my go-to ship if I want to do bunkers or something a little bit more specialized. Because sometimes the A2 is just too much ship. You don't need that much ship to do things. I find that the Redeemer is excellent for doing bunkers. Probably one of the best. Because you can kill any turrets on the ground. You could leave any environment you don't want to be in because you've got enough HP and shields to get the heck out of there. And it's just good enough for the job. Plus, you can carry 4 dudes in the back for bunker missions. You can gun it up with less guys. So if you only got 3 people and you want to do ERTs or VHRTs or whatever, yourself plus the 2 gunners on the size 5s, that's all you need. So you can get more with less out of the Redeemer than you can with the A2. But in a straight one-on-one fight, crew on crew, let's not beat around the bush here, people. The A2 is going to win. So I hope this helps you. Ultimately, get what you like. They're both good ships. But now you know my opinion, and maybe you're a bit more educated on the subject.